There are a couple of mistakes that I see frequently made by young graduates entering the workforce. Doesn't matter if you work in consulting, in investment banking, or another high-profile corporate job, these common mistakes of young graduates should just be avoided at all costs. From my experience as a former McKinsey project lead, today I'm going to talk about the 3 top mistakes that I have seen young professionals make when entering the workplace, when entering consulting. I'm going to talk about why they are so frequently done, why they are so bad, and what you should do to avoid this. Hi guys, my name is Heinrich and welcome to another video here on my channel Firm Learning. It's a bit late right now here in Germany, which is why I'm not having a coffee break, but if you want to enjoy nice coffee watching this video, then please do. As always, if you're taking any value out of this video at all, please hit the like button for the YouTube algorithm and also subscribe to my channel to not miss out on my regular content. I upload at least one video every week on every Saturday. If you want to see even more from me, you can also follow me on my Instagram. My handle is Firm Learning. And I also have a mailing list where I share even more regular insights with you guys. There's a link to that mailing list below in the video description. But without further ado, let's directly jump into it. And I will talk about the 3 mistakes that I see. And then for each of these mistakes, I'm going to share one true story that happened to me while working at McKinsey, which I hope really showcases the mistake that I'm talking about. So the first mistake that I see many people do is that young graduates sometimes are not really understanding their task. If they get their task, they're not really making sure that they're 100% aware of what is expected from them. And this is of course pretty bad, because if you do not understand why you're doing something, if you do not fully understand what you're doing, it is very difficult for you to really get that job done in the best way possible. And this of course sounds obvious, but still many people do not do it. And I believe the main reason why that's the case is because these young joiners, they don't want to seem stupid. They don't want to be caught asking something that they perceive might be a stupid question, which is why they rather not fully understand the tasks than really asking something 2 or 3 times if necessary to really clarify all the questions that they have in their head. But of course this logic is flawed, because while for sure it is better if you directly understand everything that you are asked to do at the first time, it is natural that often you won't, and your project lead or your team lead for sure will understand. And it is definitely much worse to having worked for several hours, maybe several days on a task, only then to in the end find out that you completely misunderstood the whole thing, instead of just asking a couple of extra questions in the beginning, but then in the end being able to deliver a great end product. So let me share one little story from my time as a project lead at McKinsey. I had a young associate on my team who actually was already an experienced hire from another consulting firm, which is why I kind of expected that he already kind of knew what he was doing and had already some minimal experience going on. So I gave him some Excel spreadsheets and asked him to do some very specific analysis for some specific numbers that we wanted. And I explained it to him in a couple of times, and I believed that it was pretty clear what I wanted, and he also gave me the impression that he clearly understood what he needed to do. So then he was working on that during the day, and indeed it was quite a complex analysis package, and I checked in with him a couple of times, and he always gave me the impression that yes, everything is going well and he's on track. And then later that evening, probably around 7 or 8 p.m. on the day, I wanted to sit together with him and really review what he has done so far, just to make sure he was on the right track, because I knew that I needed his work to be sent out later on that day. So when I really dived into his sheets and really into the details of what he was doing, I realized that he just didn't understand at all what he was doing. And I had the impression that he also knew himself that actually he didn't really understand what he was supposed to do. Because while he did something that clearly was not answering the questions that we were asking ourselves in the beginning, and this was far away from anything ready to be sent out to a client, which is what we wanted to do that evening, and he also knew that this is what we wanted to do. So this for me was exactly this example of somebody just too afraid, too shy to ask a clarifying question, and rather taking the risk of doing something wrong instead of just making sure that you're really understanding what you need to do. And of course this is bad not only for you but also for your team, because in that specific case both of us, me and my associate, then ended up working really late that evening to get that done, to fix it, and to still be able to send it out on the same evening. The second mistake is to not think for yourself. And this is something that I see commonly, not only for young graduates but also for other more seasoned business business professionals who just do not take ownership of their work, who just refuse to think for themselves when they have a certain task that they need to solve. Somehow many people seem to believe that if they're just exactly doing what they are told, then they are fine. And then there's no more that they need to do and they're already doing an excellent job. This is completely wrong. While of course it helps and it is often beneficial to do the things that you're asked to do well, very frequently the main value add that you can bring to the table as an employee is to think critically about these things, is to really ask whether the way how you have been asked to do something is the best way to get to the result that you know your team lead, your project lead is actually looking for. And the truth is that your supervisor, your team lead, he will often be further away from what is going on in the day-to-day business, from the nitty-gritty details of the data that you are working on, from all the interviews, all the conversations that you are having. He will be much further away from that than yourself. Of course, he will still try to do his best to give you the best guidance that he can, at least if he has a good supervisor. But there's no reason in most cases to believe that he can actually better decide what now the right thing is in a specific instance that you have been working on than yourself. So whenever you work on a task, make sure that you fully understood what it actually is that you want to achieve, and then if you receive some guidance, reflect on the guidance and ask yourself whether from the things that you know this really is the best way to go about certain things. And there are lots of examples of this, right? But just something that happens pretty much daily in consulting is creating presentations, creating slides. And some of you already know that I also have a full course on creating slides like top management consultants. If you're interested in that, check out the link in the video description to my course on creating slide presentations. But what frequently happens with presentations is that the project lead or the partner will somehow sketch out how he believes the presentation should look like. And then he gives this to an associate or to a team and asks them to implement this presentation. And then what frequently happens, especially with less experienced associates, is that they then just exactly create the presentation in the way that they are asked to do, exactly in the order of the slides, exactly with all the text as they're asked to do it. But in most cases, you realize that actually it would be better to arrange it a bit differently, that actually would be better to include the information a bit differently on the pages, that maybe showing the things exactly that you have been asked to show it just doesn't make sense. And probably the partner who asked you to do that just wasn't aware of that in the moment, because as you can imagine, he has lots of projects going on in parallel and is just not that much into the detail than you are. So then these associates create still the presentation just in the way that they've been asked, and then they are surprised that then when they show and present this to the partner, then the partner then isn't happy, because maybe if he sees then the final product, he realizes himself that it just doesn't make sense. And then it's kind of this weird atmosphere where the associate says, well, this is what you asked me to do, right? And then the partner says, well, yes, but obviously it just doesn't make sense, and you recognized for yourself that it doesn't make sense, or didn't you see that the whole story fits together the way it should? So what you should do as a good associate, as a good employee, you should ask yourself critically how exactly this should be framed. And only because you receive something at the first guidance, this in most cases doesn't mean that you can't make alterations to that where you know that it is better in the way that you are proposing it right now. So think critically about the tasks that you receive and ask yourself what you can change, what you can do better to really get your team the results that they really need. And of course, if you're doubting whether your idea is better, then feel free just to ask, right? Feel free to just challenge your supervisor, just have a constructive conversation with him and telling him, you know, you said me this, actually I think probably this other option is a bit better, what do you think, do you agree or not? And then it shouldn't be a surprise that in most cases, if you're having this conversation in a constructive way, the other party will be super open for your suggestions and very much appreciate your ownership, your input and your perspective in that. Now last but not least, let's get to the third mistake, and this is not making an active effort yourself to search out opportunities for your personal development. Somehow many young professionals seem to believe that it is the responsibility of the firm, the responsibility of the company you are working for to develop yourself. And while of course it's great if your company offers these opportunities where they really put you on a development track, on a training plan to really get the most of you out there, really to develop your skills, this is not what you should expect. And even in companies like McKinsey that heavily invest in the training of their employees, in the end it is always the first responsibility of the employee himself to search out these development opportunities. It is up to you to make sure that you develop yourself. It's not up to some manager or some company you currently work for. And I believe that opportunities to develop yourself really are out there for you just to grab pretty much every single day. And I just want to share one instance now when I was an associate. So when I was a younger consultant, what I did as a young consultant to learn about a specific new topic, about a new skill that I found was somehow important and relevant to me. So I was working on a project and trying to identify some cost-saving opportunities in a specific area of the company. And now we started a new work stream on the project. So a new set of tasks that the client asked us to look into. And this was all about the working capital. So the company wanted to improve its working capital. And I always thought that this was a very interesting topic I wanted to learn more about, because I knew that when you are in the position at some point in the future to lead a company for yourself, it will be just super important to understand these working capital concepts. So for those of you who have no idea what I'm talking about, working capital optimization pretty much means to manage your inventory, your accounts receivables and your accounts payables in an optimized and efficient way. So from the perspective of the project lead who was responsible for this whole project at the time, he now needed to ask himself, okay, to what associate on my team do I give this new piece of work? And probably from his perspective, I wasn't the first person to think about, because there was another much more senior associate on the team who also had additional bandwidth at the time. So it would have been an easy choice for him just to ask this more senior guy now to take on this additional piece of work as well. But what I did in that instance, once I heard that this new thing was out there to do, that now we're having this additional topic on our project, I proactively approached my project lead and I told him, hey, this is really a topic that I would interest me, and if that's okay for you, I would really love to take that on top of the other things that I'm already working on. And of course he appreciated that, and then in the end I was the one responsible for this work stream, and I ended up learning tons of super relevant and super interesting things that I still benefit from now today working in corporate. So the lesson learned is here that you need to reach out to these opportunities. And the truth often also is that pursuing these opportunities have some kind of cost, either monetary or time. For me, it would have been the easy path to not ask for getting this additional piece of work. I had already plenty of other stuff to do on the project, but I wanted to do it, so I pursued it. Ask yourself as well, what are the things, what are the investments that I can take now in this specific instance to develop myself personally and professionally within the opportunities that you have around you. So that's it, guys. 3 common mistakes that I see. First, make sure that you fully understand the task that you're asked to do. Second, think for yourself. Think critically about the things that you're asked to do. And third, actively pursue the opportunities for personal development that you find opening up around you. I hope you took some value out of this video. If you did, then please hit the like button. This really helps me with my YouTube channel. And of course, please also subscribe to get updates on my content every single week. Again, you can also follow me on my Instagram. My handle is Firm Learning, and I also have a mailing list. You can find a link to that below in the video description. If you have any questions on that or want to show your own mistakes that maybe you did as a young graduate, feel free to leave a comment and I will do my very best to answer every single one. Thank you so much for watching. This was Heinrich from Firm Learning. Have a good day and see you next week again.